So here's my flat in London. There's the usual clutter you can expect in a journalist room, the family photos, and on my windowsill are plants. They're the only living things I can have in my flat because it doesn't allow pets, and that includes wet pets.
Wet pets, that's another name for aquarium fish. And while my flat doesn't allow it, fish keeping is a thriving hobby in Britain. Wet Pets is also the name of a store in a garden centre just outside Nottingham.
I'm Sue, one of the owners of Wet Pets Aquatic Centres. We have 2 shops. We've owned the first shop for 16 years. That's been going 16 years, and the shop that we have here has been going for 6 years.
Sue and her husband Bob cater to all manner of fish keeper, whether they're into fancy goldfish, freshwater tropicals, or the ever-popular marine fish.
And what would you say were the best-selling fish?
Oh, still the bread and butter fish, so-called bread and butter fish, the neons, the guppies, most of the live bearers, and the little catfish, the cheap and cheerful as we call it.
Some fish are best left to the experts. And Sue tries to make sure that customers don't bite off more than they can swallow.
The more we help people, the more they're likely to stay in the hobby, and they'll start off with, say, a 2-foot tank, and possibly in 2 or 3 years end up with a 4 or 5-foot tank, or more than one.
But it's not all about fish. Some people are in it for the gadgets.
Usually, and I'm not being sexist, but it's usually fellas.
They like bigger filters.
That's right, bigger filters and lots of equipment that they can sort of mess around with.
The discovery of more advanced and affordable gadgets has certainly helped to fuel the hobby. The Ornamental Aquatic Trade Association estimates that around £1 million worth of tropical fish are imported annually into the UK, making Britain the second largest market for tropical fish in Europe after Germany. David Saxby is certainly one hobbyist who's made good use of high-tech equipment. His filters, skimmers and chillers take up 2 full rooms in his central London home. But his living room is where it all comes together. This 3-meter-long reef aquarium is the talk of the town as far as the aquarium hobby is concerned. In all, there are 300 or so hungry mouths to feed, and that's not including the corals and other invertebrates.
I leave the net up there. See what I've done? Let it melt in the net, and then every so often just tip it.
That's one of my favorite fish.
A psychedelic fish. David has 2 in his aquarium, but his favorite is a rare Mauritian tang.
But he's a beauty. And he's eating like a horse, so he's going to be all right.
But not all experienced wet pet lovers are into marine tanks. Pete Anderson lives just outside London. He's been keeping freshwater fish for 50-odd years.
It's mostly barbs. These tend to be quite good at top and middle swimming. They're feeding now on frozen bloodworm. Barbus pentazonas, the 5-banded barbs, and Odessa, the red line Odessa barbs.
You can't say that with a
Pete's other half, Sylvia.
Cold bucket.
Elsewhere in the house is the fish room.
Really, it is a shed with no windows. There is about 4 inches of polystyrene over the sides and 6 inches of polystyrene across the roof. A double door inside so that we don't lose any of the heat that is inside at all. And then just shelves with fish tanks in.
Pete can disappear for hours inside his fish room, as Sylvia well knows.
Sometimes it could be 20 minutes if he's just gone down there, or sometimes an hour or an afternoon. He's in there with the radio on as well, and that's it. He's forgotten everything else. I normally go stomping down there and I bang on the door because he's normally locked it, and I tell him off for that, and I tell him that dinner's ready.
I joined Pete in his fish room. Sure enough, it was bubbling with wet pets.
At the moment it is 30 degrees centigrade, but before we opened the door it was a little higher at 33 centigrade. It can actually get up to about 40. This is a tank of red platies. I leave them in there all the time. So I'm not really breeding them, they're breeding themselves.
You're providing accommodations.
That's it, yes.
Okay, Sylvia, we've heard of footballers' wives. How's it feel to be a fish keeper's wife?
Not too bad, actually, because I like the social side of going to the club and meeting other people.
The Hounslow and District Aquarius Society, where Pete, Sylvia and other members come to exchange ideas, equipment and generally have a good time. There are more than 50 such clubs across Britain, grouped according to region or interest. Some members also take their fish along to be judged at the table show, refereed by the Federation of British Aquarist Societies. One of the club's most prominent members is Dick Mills, widely considered Britain's top wet pets expert.
In Britain, as opposed to Germany and Holland, fish keeping is a pastime, a hobby. It's for enjoyment. We don't get terribly serious about it. We don't really care if our fish are better than somebody else's on a comparative basis. We keep fish because we like them. And because of that, anybody can keep fish. It doesn't have to be a question of finances. Obviously, if you've got money to throw at things, you can have the best, but it doesn't make sure that you're going to succeed. Does it mean new?
New and November.
Oh, no.
Dick was kind enough to give me signed copies of his books. While he's now Britain's foremost author on fish keeping, Dick says he was once a beginner too.
There we go. I tried breeding them. I couldn't, so I decided to come somewhere like this to find out from the members how to do it. And then I got more and more involved, and I've been going on and on about it ever since. I write for magazines and I have a few books out, so I've become a self-made expert. Well, that's what other people think, but I'm just enjoying fish.
They say watching fish can be therapeutic, which is why we see so many aquariums in doctors' waiting rooms and hospitals. And whether your fascination with wet pets is a solitary one you share with your partner, or even with a wider group, it's not hard to see why many in Britain are taking the plunge into wet pets.